Welcome. My name is George Pearson and I run the How To Gurus channel here on YouTube. Most of the videos in my channel are short demonstrations of the different tools and techniques you'll find in various software programs. Right now I have several hundred of these quick videos available on YouTube. This video though is different. This is part of a new series of longer demonstrations that I'm doing to show you how to complete complex projects from start to finish using a variety of techniques and tools. All of the images I use in these projects are in the public domain, and I've included a link to the pictures in the video description in case you want to work along using the same images. Okay, let's move on to the project. In this Photoshop project, we're going to be hand coloring a black and white image. Now this looks like it's a full color image, but it's not. This is actually a black and white that I've gone back in and hand colored. And the reason it looks good is a careful choice of colors and also a careful choice of applications. I could have taken this a bit further. For instance, I only used one tone for the sky. I could have put in a few more tones in the sky and made it look more realistic. I could have done a few more tones inside the outfits and made it look more realistic. I left it relatively simple. I did multiple tones on the grass down here in the weeds, but that's as far as I went on the multiple tones. So here's the original. It's just a straight black and white image. And the way that this is done, the approach on this to get this full color effect is to do lots of different sections. You can see here I've actually just colorized the whole image. And I have used masks to show part of the colorized image. So it's a question of making careful selections of the areas you want to have a certain color, using the selections to make a mask, and then colorize that image. See down here I did a little bit of additional stuff. This is the additional coloration in there. A little secondary stuff on that. But pretty straightforward, as you can see. The nice thing about this is I can use these colors, in different areas. You can even copy a color, then modify it a little bit to make it a little bit easier. If you want to have, two versions of the same color, you can do that. If you want to go even fancier on this, put a little gradients and things. Take any color and do a real slight gradient across the image. A little darker to a little lighter or something. That will give you some variations in there. Okay, let's go ahead and start this project. We'll do it right down here. Let me just hide that black and white. Oh, one more thing. Let's take a look at this. Notice that I am working background to foreground. Pretty much is background to foreground. This one down here is just a little bit hard to see. Actually, that's just a little shirt collar right there. It's really a foreground piece. This one can be moved up a bit higher. But primarily work from your background to your foreground. So do the clouds and sky coloration first, the person in behind next, and then stuff that's in front after that. It makes it a little more controlled over here. Okay, so let's go ahead and start this process. And we'll start off by doing a selection around these figures. And we'll do this just the sky. And I'll start with my polygonal lasso tool. Now, if you're using this tool, you want to zoom in a bit on it. So I'll zoom in like this. Now, when you use the tool, it's going to automatically scroll for you. So I'll just start down here and then just carefully work along the edge. Now, one of the reasons I want to do this as masks is that with a mask I can go back and I can adjust and modify that mask using my black and white paintbrush. So if it's a little bit off, if there's a problem showing, I can easily fix that problem. And that gives me some ability for adjustment. That's always a good idea if you have that ability. So I'm going to make the selection first, and then I'll copy that background layer and then work up from there. Now I'm not going to be in this video showing you all of the selections. We'll do a little bit of the selections and then I'll do part of the selecting off camera, so you're not sitting here just watching me make selections all day. Now around here I'm going to come out a little bit and we're going to refine the edge of that selection right around there where the hair is. Now there's this cap. I'll come around the cap a little bit more carefully. And then we'll refine the edge around there and then come back into our forehead here and do a little more careful around this. Now whenever you're doing this kind of selection, the more care you put into it, the better the finished result is going to be. So don't rush making your selections. Take your time, do a good job, and you'll have a much better final output on that. Okay, just a little bit around the nose here. A little hard to see some of this stuff and making just real short pieces. Now I'm going to close this selection off without finishing off the whole sky, and I'll finish the whole thing off camera, but there's one thing I want to show you first, and that's how to handle that hair up there. So I'm going to finish around this jacket, and then we'll stop the selection at that point, and we'll refine the selection around that guy's hair on the left hand side, since that's an important step. Most of the rest of the steps would just be the same thing over and over again. I'm just using different colorations, and we'll do a few of those for the demo, but not too much. I won't go crazy on doing that. This will take a while to really finish this whole thing properly, but you will be seeing all of the steps in here. Okay, I'm going to come in just over that, and then at this point, let's pull this up here, click outside. And you can make your selections outside, and it will still run our selection. We'll then come down and find our beginning point. There it is. Okay, so there's the selection. We now want to refine the area right around the hair in here. So go up to Select, Refine Edge. There we go. Notice I have a little brush tool thing there. You can adjust that size right here. And what you want to do is you want to have the middle of that in the area that you want to have kept, and overlap into the area that you want to have removed. And then Photoshop goes through and it tries to fix it. Well, this will take a little bit of additional tweaking in here to get this just right. This will get us close. And then we'll tweak the mask to make that everything else just perfect. Okay, you can see it's doing a pretty good job about finding that edge. Not perfect, unfortunately, but it's pretty good. It gets us most of the way. All right, that's about as far as that wants to take it for us. And you'll have this problem with this Refine Edge tool. Sometimes it'll work great, sometimes it won't work at all. You'll have to go in and then manually adjust that. Okay, so there it is. We now can decide how we want to output this. Output to a selection or to a layer mask, new layer. We're going to go right to a layer mask. Choose OK. There's the layer mask. And you can see in here, it's actually blocking out part of that. And I really want to see the imaging behind. So let's just make a copy of this. There we go. And on this bottom one, this will be our backup. I'm going to delete that layer mask. So now I can see that edge up here. If I colorize this a little bit, it doesn't matter what color I use at this point. Let me show you the colorization technique. Now we're working with a sky. So let's go up to Image Adjustments, Hue Saturation, and then Colorize. And see there's the colorization on that. Let's bring a little more saturation in. And this is going to be our sky color. So we want something in the blue range. Right in there somewhere looks good. You can adjust the saturation and you can adjust the lightness to get the values what you want. You can always come back and fix these, do a little bit more additional adjustments. Choose OK. All right, now that we have that, we can see where this mask is not working for us. It doesn't work for us right down here, for instance. It looks okay up here, but I'll still want to clean that up a little bit. So let's zoom in. And this is where it gets a little bit tricky because we're working with very small areas. But you can see here we have a bit of the black and white showing through the hair. Now if you examine this, you can see here's the kid's head, and here's this area here. So the white is showing us the blue coloration, and then the black is hiding the blue coloration. So I want to paint white onto the mask. Click on your mask, make sure you see that white outline around it so we know that we're on the outline. Let's reverse our colors, so we want white for showing, and bring our paintbrush up, and I'll need this very small size here, about a 13, and I'm on the mask. If I just paint into the mask, you'll see how it actually shows through for us, just like that. Now the nice thing about this technique is that we're going to be doing several of these masks, so I don't really have to come in and be real careful on the hair, because we'll be coming back to the hair and doing the hair again on a different layer. But I don't want to have that big dark area there, so I can come in up against the edge, and we'll be doing the kid's head in another layer on top of this layer, so we can actually move in a bit. That's why you want to do background stuff first. Okay, so right down and around here somewhere. You just come in along the edge and clean up that. Now in here, there's a little bit of transparency on that we had left, so it's not quite as rich of a color as I want, so I'll just come in and do a little bit more of that. Now if you want to, you could come in and do the whole thing by hand. You don't have to be doing the careful masking that I was doing. If you like freehanding stuff, you can freehand things, just go in and do the mask directly. Okay, so that takes care of the hair. Again, there's a little bit of blue in the hair. That's not going to matter. We'll be putting another layer of hair on top of this one. But there's the basic technique on this. Let's just see how the edge is over here. It's that you make a selection for the area that you want to colorize. You can see, there we go, looks pretty good. We have our sky coming in there nicely. So you make a selection of the part that you want to colorize, use that to create a mask, and then colorize the whole image. Let's go ahead and we'll do one more of these. And this time I think let's do the flesh tones. There's a whole bunch of those in here. I'll do all the flesh tones at one time. And I'm first going to pause the video for a minute here, and I'm going to finish the sky off here off camera. So you don't need to watch me do that whole selection all over again. So I'll finish the sky off camera. I'll bring the camera back up again, and we'll then do the flesh tones. And there we go. There's the sky finished off. Let's now do the next layer. We'll do that flesh tone we were talking about. We'll take the background and copy the background layer. There we go, and put it up on top. Now in this case, we'll do a little bit differently this time. We'll use the same technique with a mask over here. And I want to have a mask this time that hides everything. And then we'll paint in on the mask white and reveal parts of the layer. Let's first choose our toning for this and choose our flesh tones. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see some flesh tones. That's a good shot right there. And then image, adjustments, hue, saturation. Let's colorize that. And now we're going to look around and find a nice flesh tone in here. Now to get the flesh tone right, it's a bit of a balancing act to get just the right level. You don't want to have too much yellow in there or green. You don't want to have too much red. So it's something in here, and then choose the right amount of saturation. It will look much more flesh tone like once we get the rest of the colors in there, but something around in here is pretty good. Again, we can always come back and modify and adjust these or just redo the color in the future. So that'll be our flesh tone for right now. It may be a little too saturated, but I think we're going to be okay with that. So that gives us our basic toning in here. It's really just a sepia tone on the image. Let's now put a layer mask on this, but I want to have a layer mask in black, not a layer mask in white. So let's go up to the layer menu, layer mask, and hide all. There it goes. So it hides everything. Now if we paint white onto the layer mask, it's just like what we did before with making the selection. That thing gave us the black and white separations. So I'll grab the white. There we go. We're on white. So if you're not there, just make sure that you're on your selections like that, and you have your foreground background color correct. Make sure you're on the layer mask. Notice how these are going to be just pure white and black at this point. Grab your paintbrush, and then if you paint into the mask, where you can see a little bit right there, it's going to reveal this layer over here. So the second way of doing this is kind of like what we were doing in the last step when I was going back in and cleaning up the mask. And it's more as if we're actually coming in now and painting in the color. Again, you don't have to be perfect on this because you can always go back and clean things up after the fact. You can always go back in and then modify or adjust. So if I go a bit too far on this, like a bit on the hair right there, let's say I came in like that, too much on the hair, just reverse your colors. Paint that in black. Make sure it reverses for me. There we go. Paint back in with the black, and that then hides it. So you can paint back and forth with your colorations. Okay, let's go back to our white again, and we'll just finish painting this in. So, different ways of approaching this. If it's a real complicated area with some fine details like we had on the hair up there, I would go in and do the careful selections like we did. If it's more of an area like this where it is fairly large areas with fairly soft, easy to follow boundaries, then you can just go ahead and paint right onto the mask and do it like that. So there's the basic flesh tone. Let's do this guy up here. Same thing again, by painting in white onto the layer mask, I'm revealing what's over here. Now once you have this done, once you have your reveal done and you have your colors in here, you can then adjust the colors using any of your other tools very, very easily. So let's do a little bit of finish in here like that. And we'll finish off his face. You can see how easy this is to do this. So once you have those done, we can tone this down. You can actually blend this in with the blue behind, and we'll really come down to the black and white down at the bottom, because of course that's only showing the sky area. By bringing down the opacity, if I bring it way down, notice that we're now looking through at the black and white background. So I can tone down the amount of color in here if I want to by adjusting the opacity on this. Now when you're doing this, you want to be doing things that we be working specifically on the layer itself. You don't want to be doing any adjustment layers in here, because adjustment layers are going to be acting on everything underneath the adjustment layer, and we don't want to have that. We want to have all of our controls on each individual layer. But because we can control how much color is being applied with the opacity, that allows you to go back and forth very, very easily here and have some fine-tuned adjustments on your coloration. Okay, so let's do a little more of this. We'll just do his hand. So we'll finish out the flesh tones on this one, and then we'll do another color, and I think at that point you'll have a good sense of the approach, a good sense of the technique on how this is all done. Now, if you want to be real careful, of course, you're going to want to zoom in a bit and do a little bit more. I'm keeping these large areas of color pretty consistent. If you wanted some variation on this, just do another layer on top and give it a new mask. It only shows the one layer. Let's say I had a little bit of a darker or different coloration, adding in two similar tones but not the same tone on the flesh tones. I could do that as a second layer above here and then adjust the opacity between the two and just do little bits of that secondary color and then blend those together with the opacity setting on the top one. Okay, a little more around the hand down here. You can see how easy this is to do. It's actually fairly straightforward. On that ring right there, I might want to come back in on the ring and do its own layer for the ring and give it a gold tone possibly. Alright, let's go ahead and take a look at the other guy off to the right hand side over here. There we go. We have his hand. I don't know what he has his hands on there. Possibly a rabbit, maybe. Hard to say. Something that they've captured out in the wild and they're taking measurements on. Now, just to be clear on this, these are not hunters. This is a picture taken from the U.S. Forestry Service, and these are our wildlife scientists that are taking measurements and things like that, putting tracking bands on these animals' feet so they can then, if they spot them again, they can take a look at the tracking band and see when they last examined them and so forth. So they're not out here hurting the animals, they're not out here hunting them. This is a scientific bit of data gathering. Okay, that looks pretty good. Again, all I'm doing is painting white onto the mask and showing the color through that mask. And don't really see his face at all, but we know it's there. So I'll make sure we give a little bit of coloration in there as well. Now it's real tricky up here, so I'm just going to paint right over the edge like that. And then we'll come back with black and clean up the outside edge where it's easier to do. There we go. Okay, let's now take a look and see how well this has worked. There we go. So our flesh tones are looking really nice at this point. Let's now just do one more little bit. I think I'll do the blue jeans in here. We'll take care of that. And at that point, you'll have a good idea on what the approach is here to doing this kind of hand tinting or colorization. It really comes down to doing separate layers with masks. So one more time, grab the original layer, drag it down to your new layer button, pull it up to the top. There we go. Let's colorize this one. And I'm looking for the blue jeans color now. So let's zoom in on that a bit. There we go. Image adjustments, hue saturation, colorize. Take this over into the blues. And I'll need a lot more saturation to get this just right. And see if we can find the right setting for that. And it's a bit of a give and take to try to get just the right effect. And a lot of it is just eyeballing things. But I think that's pretty close to the effect we want. Same thing again, we want to have a mask that hides everything. So layer mask, hide all. There we go. And then paint back in white. So let's change this over to white. Make sure that you're on the mask layer. So have that white outline on the mask layer. Grab the paintbrush and then paint back in And that will then give you your color. Now that I see the color against everything else, I can see it's really far too bright. So we're going to want to knock this down a bit. Also want to fix that bit of a branch, a little bit of a weed there. We'll take care of that, but I'm just going to do a large coloration first. We'll then tone down the color. Once I can see it a bit better, once I have it narrowed down to just the jeans area, we can then modify that color a little bit. Now the way you clean up things like this is to come in with a smaller paintbrush and paint back in with black to clean up that edge. And there we go. Now on things like that black jacket, you probably want to put just a little bit of color on that jacket from the environment. You don't want to leave it just this kind of black. Put a little bit of something in there. Maybe a little bit of a bluish tone on top of that black to make it look a little more realistic. Okay, let's do this other guy's pants over here. And again, you don't have to be real critical on this because it's easy to go back in and clean up the mask. We'd be adding in layers above this. For instance, I'm going to be putting in a grass layer above this and actually painting in the grass and being more careful about that part of that. With a very small paintbrush to make the mask for the grass layer. And that will be on top of this layer, so that will actually just hide all this stuff underneath, so we can be a little bit rougher around that. Now things like that white paper in there and the white baseball cap one of the guys is wearing, even on those you want to put in a little bit of color, just a little subtle bit of color. I could make this yellow, for instance, make it a yellow pad instead of a white pad. It'll look a little more realistic that way. On his hat, I'd add just a little bit of a tan color to that, just a touch, real subtle, off-white almost. You don't want to have pure white. You want to have some coloration in there to make it look more like an actual realistic picture. Okay, let's now see if we can adjust the coloration of these pants, make them look a little more realistic. It's a bit too bright. So let's go back up here to our adjustments. And let's take a look at our curves on this one. And make sure I'm on the right layers. Cancel that. Make sure you're on the image part of it and not the mask, because the mask won't be doing you any good at all. Okay, adjustments and curves. Okay, bring it down a bit. Helps. Looking pretty. I don't think I want to be doing anything up here. Maybe a little bit of that. Just knock some of the lightness off. Still a bit much. It's not really what I want to have happening on that. I'm not really happy with that. So let's look at our vibrance adjustments. If we can bring the vibrance down a little bit and the saturation back a little bit. That's better. So it's not quite so strong. And let's bring the tone down a little bit. So brightness contrast, bring our brightness down a bit. And that's beginning to look better. That's a little more realistic. Okay, let's go ahead and zoom out. And you can see it's beginning to build up or beginning to work into our colors in here. And it's simply a matter of deciding what colors you want to use and then doing the coloration for that and the mask. Okay, let's now take a look at our original again up here. It's a little bit darker on my original. But there we go. As you can see, this is the whole process. For instance, here is a blue tone, a dark blue tone for this leather jacket. right there. Probably should have pulled it up around the collar a little bit as well. And the color in here for his jacket, that's right down here. There it is. The green tone in here, that's this shirt, that shirt, and his hat. I use the same tone for all three of those spots. And again, same thing we've just been doing, just a matter of deciding which area you want to have which color. Find the right color by toning the image, hide the whole image with a black mask, and then bring back in with white, either by making a careful selection if you want to, or by just painting right on the mask. Either way is fine. And then showing that toned area by using the mask, and we're basically just showing little separate areas for each one of these layers. So there you go. That is how you hand color a black and white image. Thank you for watching this special Photoshop photography project video. Don't forget to subscribe so that you will get first notice of new project videos in the future. Just click on this link right here where it says subscribe here. You can get all 12 project videos in this series along with 26 special videos demonstrating the tools and techniques that I used in these projects by clicking on this link right down here. And then thank you again for watching this training video.